There's a quiet kind of pressure that lingers in the background of everyday life. It doesn't scream or crash in with panic. It simmers beneath the surface, a subtle strain of always holding it all together, even when your soul feels like it's unraveling thread by thread. You wake up already bracing for things that haven't gone wrong yet. Your mind leaps ahead, playing out conversations, fixing imaginary problems, scanning the horizon for anything that could go sideways. It's like being stuck in a mental survival game, always preparing, always managing. But no one sees it. You get used to it. The tight shoulders, the heavy chest, it becomes your baseline. You tell yourself it's just what adulthood feels like. But that's not adulthood. That's emotional overdrive. That's the mental toll of trying to be the glue, the anchor, the problem solver for everything and everyone. What if I told you that things don't start to shift until you stop trying to control every outcome? You think it's responsibility. You think it's being wise. But what you're really doing is micromanaging your anxiety. You're rehearsing life instead of living it. How often have you ruined a peaceful moment because your brain decided to fast forward into next week's imaginary disaster? You're sitting under the sun, but your thoughts are pacing in a crisis room. You're lying in bed, but your mind's in a courtroom preparing arguments for a conflict that doesn't exist. You're everywhere except here, and it's exhausting. Life doesn't become easier by preparing the perfect reaction to every scenario. It becomes lighter when you stop needing a reaction for everything. When you stop responding to things that haven't even happened yet. When you reclaim your attention from the just in case mindset that silently hijacks your peace. You don't have to stop caring, but you do need to stop over-caring about things that haven't earned your attention. Not everything needs a plan. Some things just need you to meet them as they come, with a calm heart, not a clenched jaw. Ask yourself this: when did we start believing that more thinking equals better living? Somewhere along the way, overthinking became this badge of honor. If you're constantly worrying, it must mean you care. You're responsible, you're evolved. Right? Wrong. That's just chaos dressed up in productivity. You're not more aware because you think 5 steps ahead. You're just more drained. You're not more loving because you stress yourself out. You're just entangled in outcomes you can't control. Mental busyness isn't the same as wisdom. And the people who carry the most peace, they aren't the ones who figured everything out. They're the ones who stopped needing everything to make sense. And that's a skill, a decision, a daily practice. Because peace isn't something you find, it's something you stop running from. We say we crave peace, but we treat stillness like a threat. We say we want change, but grip old habits like lifeboats. You can't turn the page while clinging to the paragraph you've already outgrown. Start small. You don't have to dissolve all your stress in one breath, but maybe, just maybe, you can let a few things go. Maybe you don't need to answer that text right now. Maybe you don't need to re-explain yourself to someone who's already decided not to understand you. Maybe it's okay to be misunderstood and survive it. That's radical, I know. But peace doesn't kick down your door. It walks in when you stop performing for problems. When you stop acting like the emotional janitor cleaning up messes that don't belong to you. When you finally decide your energy is not available for every false alarm. And the wild part? That's when everything starts to shift. People treat you differently. Life slows down, not because it changed, but because you did. Your nervous system finally exhales. And suddenly, the things that used to break you, they just feel boring in the best way. You realize This chaos doesn't control me anymore. This moment doesn't get to wreck me. There's a quiet kind of strength that shows up when you stop needing to explain yourself. Not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. You stop trying to be understood by everyone because you realize it's a job with no pay and no days off. Your ego might hate that, but your peace will thank you. And once you let go of that pressure, your whole perspective changes. People's opinions, background noise, their reactions, just data, not a mirror. You're not cold. You're not closed off. You're just no longer outsourcing your worth to outside validation. Because nobody tells you this, but your value is not a group project. The more votes you give away, the more unstable your identity becomes. One compliment lifts you. One glare brings you down. One rejection spirals your entire day. At some point, you just get tired of living like that. You stop chasing validation like oxygen. You build your own internal evidence. You show up, you do the work, and let that be enough. Quietly, consistently, for yourself. And from that place, something powerful grows. You no longer lower your standards to keep the peace. You no longer over-explain boundaries that don't need debate. You stop chasing closure from people who never had the capacity to give it. That's real power. And it's the kind people feel when you walk into a room. They can't name it, but they sense it. It's the energy of someone who chose themselves, not in arrogance, but in exhaustion. Someone who got tired of shrinking so others wouldn't feel insecure in the dark. Silence becomes your strength, not the awkward kind, but the kind that speaks for itself. The kind that makes people wonder, what changed? You stopped proving. You stopped reacting. You stopped explaining yourself to every passerby. You became present, still, unshaken. And in today's world, that's rare. We're surrounded by noise. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to be loud, be right, be seen. But you pull back. You observe. You listen. You move with intention. That's not passivity. That's precision. That's the emotional discipline of someone who's not here to waste energy. You're not trying to win arguments. You're not playing social chess. You're not solving imaginary crises in your head. You're conserving your strength for what really matters. And when you move like that, people notice, even if they don't know why. They say, there's just something about you. That's your peace speaking. That's your presence doing the talking. And here's the twist. The less you try to be heard, the more people listen. Not because you raised your voice, but because you raised your standards. You shifted your energy. No announcement needed, no declaration necessary. You just began showing up differently. More grounded, more focused, more intentional. You stopped accepting invitations to every battle. You stopped justifying your boundaries. You stopped explaining yourself in rooms that never had ears in the first place. Now ask yourself, how much of your energy goes toward reacting to things that aren't yours to carry? How many times have you explained yourself to someone who had no interest in understanding? What if you just stop? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength wearing calm like armor. You don't need to be everywhere, respond to everything, fix every narrative. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. That shift, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's real, and it's liberating. You start seeing how much energy you were wasting, how much space you were giving to distractions, projections, emotional quicksand. You stop being pulled into every emotional tug of war. You stop turning tiny moments into defining sagas. And your peace, it expands. You become selective, not guarded, just intentional. You start treating your attention like currency, and you stop spending it where it brings no return. You're not distant, you're focused. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not rude, you're just unavailable for the kind of chaos that used to drain you. And the funny part, people notice. Not because you're shouting from the rooftops, but because silence now speaks louder than your past reactions ever did. You stop accepting every emotional assignment thrown your way. You stop decoding every vague message or reading between lines that aren't there. Not everything needs your energy. Not every situation deserves your presence. Not every person earns the right to your explanation. That's not bitterness, that's boundaries. And when people tell you you've changed, your response is simple. Yes, I was never meant to stay stuck in loops. You weren't created to repeat the same emotional dramas. You were made to grow, to evolve, to step back, not in retreat, but in restoration. You stop needing closure. You stop chasing understanding from the wrong sources. You start recognizing that sometimes the most complete sentence is silence. And from that space, everything changes. Not because the world gets easier, but because you stop chasing what was never yours to fix. You found your peace. And now, you protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. This is where your new life begins. Clear, calm, unshakable. Right here, right now.